In today's video, we're going over some of my favorite single-legged balance exercises. So single-leg balance exercises are obviously very, very important. The one area that we think about all the time as physical therapists is ankle sprain injuries, but it's also going to be important for any sort of ligamentous injury in the lower body, like an ACL, potentially some sort of hip labral repair, just because when you have a major injury, we lose proprioception, or basically the body's ability to understand where it is in space. So after a major injury, like an ankle sprain, we need to have a good arsenal of exercises from very easy to very hard to get our athletes back to what they want to get back to. So we're going to go over a variety of different exercises for single-legged balance. There are a few major things you can change to make the exercises a little bit easier, a little bit harder. We're going to start off with a standard single-legged balance on one leg. So go ahead and stand on one leg, Taylor. Very good. And to make things more challenging, all you have to do is close the eyes. When you close the eyes, you're no longer getting visual feedback about where your body is in space. The second way we can make this a little bit more difficult is by adding an unstable surface. Eric's pad works great. So just take this baby, put it down on the floor, and go ahead and balance for me. So when I'm staying on something that's unstable, when I try to right my balance, it's not as easy to do that because you have a little bit of give from the surface, okay? And there's also different hardnesses. So if you have a harder surface that's unstable, it's gonna be a little bit easier, and a softer one's gonna be a little bit harder, okay? You can relax now, Taylor. The other thing we can do is add a rocker board, but we can change the orientation. If I'm this way, that means I'm going to have more challenge in the sagittal plane. If I'm this way, more challenge in the frontal plane. So let's have you go ahead and stand on this here for me. Very good. And then balance. And it's pretty easy to see that this is a little unstable. It's going back and forth. She's going to have to use all the musculature within her foot to right herself. Okay? Then take a breather. The other thing I like to use to challenge athletes' balance is just by changing the base of support to be a little bit smaller. So if you think about standing on one leg, you have the entire surface of your foot to control motion side to side, front and back, so on and so forth. If we shorten that up a little bit by utilizing, let's say, a heel float, it makes it more challenging for athletes. Let's do this to this side. Just have you face me, Taylor. Let's have you stand with a little bit of your heel off the edge, okay? And then from here, go ahead and try and balance, right? So we went from having the entire foot to control balance, now half the foot. We want to make this a little bit easier. We put a little bit more of the foot onto this mat right here. You got it. And if we want to make it a little bit harder, we just go off the edge a little more so. And it actually gets very challenging very quickly. The other piece about heel float exercise is they put a little more challenge into the lower leg, like the calf as well as the foot. Another way to make these balance exercises more challenging is to add a perturbation. So it's going to have Taylor just balance on one leg. And then from here, I'm just going to come and give her some perturbations side to side, front and back. And what happens is that it's a little bit more challenging to balance at the foot because I'm trying to knock her off balance. And the last way to make single leg balance a little more challenging is by adding a neurocognitive demand. Now, if you think about most sports, usually you're reacting to some sort of stimuli like a ball, other players. Utilizing a ball and having to pass with your patients or setting up blaze pods so an athlete is thinking about something else while they're trying to dynamically stabilize on their ankle is a little bit more sport specific. So let's have you balance on one ankle here, Taylor. And I'm going to toss this ball to you. And you can make this more challenging by throwing a little bit further, right? So if I start to throw in different areas, she's going to have to reach, she's going to have to shift her weight side to side, and it gets a little more challenging from a balance perspective. One of my favorite starting exercises is going to be a single leg balance with a four-way reach. So we're going to have Taylor balance on one leg. We're going to have her reach forward, to the side, backwards, then across the body towards me. Very good. You can also advance it in all the other ways we just spoke about. Unstable surface, perturbations, ball catch, all that stuff is also on the table. I'm also a really big fan of single-legged balance with reaching with the upper extremity. We can make this pretty challenging by changing the height of where we're reaching towards and adding more cones and reaching to multiple planes. Usually I start patients off reaching towards an elevated surface. So let's have you balance on one leg, Taylor, and then I want you to use just your left hand, try to tap that cone, and then try to tap this cone, okay? We can also reach with the opposite upper extremity to add some more challenge. So now do that with the right side. Very good. Yep. And if we want to make this even more demanding, we just go ahead and reach down towards the floor. So now it gets a little bit harder. Try a few of these, Taylor. Yep. Just more and more challenge. Another very challenging balance exercise is the hip airplane. So essentially, it looks a lot like the start of a single-legged balance. So let's have you balance on one leg. And from here, we're going to flex at the hip, kind of like you're doing a single-legged deadlift. The deeper you go into hip flexion, the harder it gets. So just keep in mind, it gets really hard really quickly. And the idea here is we want to rotate for the entire trunk, kind of like the wings of an airplane. So go ahead and give me your plane wings. Good. And I want you to rotate across the body. So right side hand is reaching across the body. Left side arm comes up. And then we'll go the opposite direction as well. A lot of folks will screw up this motion because they move well from the upper body, but they don't move well from the lower body. Taylor's actually doing a really good job. So as she rotates up towards the side, opens up, her foot is spinning up towards the ceiling, and as she closes off and goes across the other direction, the toe is facing the opposite direction, which is good. Another great way to spice up your single leg balance drills is by adding a water ball. This is a water ball, Chaos from oatsspecialties.com. We use these, we really like them a lot. But essentially it's filled up with a little bit of water. So go ahead and stand on one leg for me. And the water, you can't feel this obviously, you're watching the video, but it starts to swirl around a little bit and it makes balance pretty tough. If you have someone with a very acute ankle injury and they're standing on one leg, if you want to give them a little bit of resistance, they can just hold this ball. And the water moves slightly and they have to right their balance, right? We can also make this much more challenging by adding different variations like reaching. We're gonna do a three-way reach next. So Taylor's gonna reach forward and then come back, reach to the side, come back, and then reach to the other side. Okay? Obviously the ankle has to dynamically stabilize as we do this, okay? We can make this more challenging by adding a little bit of speed. So go ahead and punch forward and back, punch to the side and back, punch to the other side and back. Well, Taylor's actually making this look really good. It's a very challenging movement here. We can also start to work in different planes of motion. So a good example is by rotating side to side. So chop diagonally across the body. Good. Yep, and then if we want to make it really hard, just go faster. Nice. I'm also a really big fan of adding a wall dribble with your single leg balance exercises. First drill we're going to try is have Taylor stand on one leg. You can use the AirX pad to make it more challenging and just dribble the ball towards the wall. One of the reasons why this is phenomenal is because we're challenging the ankle and really the entire body in both the frontal plane as well as the transverse plane when we do this. We can also make sure we work the other side, so you can just flip legs, right, and then go ahead and dribble against the wall. Excellent. The other drill I really like to do with the medicine ball is to face the wall, and then from here we're going to dribble side to side. Catch on your left, dribble, catch on your right. Okay? And again, one of the reasons why this is really nice is the ball is trying to rotate you. You have to use your foot and ankle and your hip to control that motion as you turn side to side. Great way to beef up your balance exercises. As balance improves and pain goes down and range of motion gets close to full, we probably want to start thinking about being more dynamic with our exercises. Obviously, most sports involve running, jumping, changing direction, all that good stuff. We have to train the ankle, the knee, and the hip to be able to do that. A great way to do that is adding in hops, okay? And we can either jump from one leg to the same leg or one leg to the opposite leg. Usually it's a little bit easier to jump from, let's say, your right leg to the left leg. Just keep in mind, if you're gonna do a skater jump and you're gonna jump off your good side onto your bad side, you can probably jump pretty dang far on the right, but your left foot might not be able to handle those forces, okay? So just go slow and easy in the beginning, okay? We're gonna do a few of my favorite jump variations, and really you're just jumping in different planes of motion. So the first one is going to be a jump on one leg, and we're gonna jump forward, balance, and then jump backwards, balance. All right, can you show me that, Taylor? Good, and then jumping backwards, and relax. You can also add an unstable surface on the area that you're jumping to. You gotta be very careful with that, because if you're not prepared to do this, you may end up injuring your athlete again. So don't roll your ankle when you're doing these drills, okay? The second direction is just jumping to the side. So I'll have Taylor jump to the side, land, gather her balance. Very good, that's awesome, and then jump right back. Good, perfect. We also can start to jump in diagonal, so anterior medial, anterior lateral. Let's do a jump starting in the center and jumping towards this cone and back, and then we'll jump towards this cone and back. Boom, balancing and then hopping back. Boom, you got it. And then jumping this way. Good, and then jumping back. The last drill, and probably the hardest drill, is going to be a jump with a turn, okay? So the further you turn when you're jumping, obviously the harder it gets. We're gonna try a quarter turn. So essentially, Taylor's gonna balance on one leg, jump, turn, midair, face this way, balance, jump, turn this way, stick the landing, balance. Try that out. Jump, turn, stick that landing, awesome. And then jumping and turning, very good. And keep in mind, you know, I spoke about this in a prior video, but if you're dealing with someone who has a high ankle sprain injury, oftentimes rotation is tough to control. This is a phenomenal exercise for those folks because we're challenging exactly that. That's it for the video, but not it for the learning. I have another great video for you to watch. Go ahead and click up in the corner and then get to learning.